So, if you've been looking at the news lately, you might have seen a couple headlines talking about Google making the development of Android private going forward. Now, it's true, Google are making certain parts of the development process private, aka sort of closed source, but not in the way that you would think. So, if we go through this article, they talk about, Android, and it's always open because, as we all know, Android is an open source project to a certain extent with the, the Android Open Source Project, AOSP, I believe it's called. And of course, Google then put their little proprietary spin on things afterwards. But the open source Android project is exactly that, it is open source. And that's not changing. So the Android open source project is still going to be open source. That is not changing. What Google are doing, however, is they are making private the development process between releases. So this is between maintenance releases within Android versions, and of course the Android versions themselves. So from what I've gathered, and I've only just started reading about this from this article, and also this article here by NewsBytes, what I've managed to gather is that originally, the different in between releases of Android and different maintenance releases, Google would release sort of edits to Android sort of by piecemeal, and this would, as Google have put it, they say that it would sort of pose as a barrier for developers in order to keep up with the releases that Google were making with Android. This sort of piecemeal, slow release of different parts of a maintenance update, but not the maintenance update itself or different major Android releases. It claims the move will simplify matters for developers and won't mean Android's open source roots are a thing of the past. Like I've said, the Android open source project will remain as it is and will remain open source. Quote, our aim is to focus attention on the current stable version of the Android source code while we create the next version of the platform. So if you didn't know, as they were developing new versions of Android, I think Android 15 has just released, something like that, you were able to go into the different releases that Google were releasing, and it would you'd be able to see what Google were trying to develop for the upcoming Android version. Google came on to say this allows developers and OEMs to use a single version without tracking unfinished future work just to keep up. So Google are basically saying they're minimizing the amount of work that developers and OEM manufacturers need to put into maintaining and updating their software. Now, instead of doing it for every little piece, they only need to do it for the big pieces. It means third-party developers making an Android-based product won't have to regularly update their work mid-development as new, relatively piecemeal versions of Android are released. What does it mean for the average Android user? And then they go on to say that it doesn't actually mean much for the average user. And if you're just a user of an Android product, if you've got a little Android box or a mobile phone, whatever it is, then yeah, it's not really going to mean much for you. One of the key takeaways is this move will see for now the two branches of Android developed privately. These are the Android open source project and the Google Mobile Services take on Android. So the Google Mobile Services is the thing that includes, it says down here, the things like Google Play, Gmail, Chrome. So these definitely have proprietary code bases, whereas the Android open source project by itself does not. And it goes on here, it comes with a license fee. AOSP Android framework can be used by anyone. When Huawei was barred from using Google Apps, having been blacklisted by the US government in 2019, it continued to use AOSP even if its phones could no longer incorporate Google Apps. I'm going to guess that the privatization of the development process is going to maybe mess with Huawei a little bit. I'm guessing, but Huawei developed their own apps anyway on the open source Android project, so I don't really know if it's going to affect them at all. But in conclusion, this is really sort of just a nothing burger. I mean, they're making private the development between releases, which of course isn't the most transparent thing to do, but when they do come to the releases and they release them onto the Android open source project, you will then be able to inspect the source code and everything within that release. So it doesn't really change the fact that it is open source, because it still is. I mean, the Google services aren't, but they've never been open source. And so basically, I think this is more of just a sort of a headline grabber trying to grab your attention to read it, rather than a serious implication on the open source nature of Android. There you have it, just a little quick bit talking about the news that I saw today. I am still working on an upcoming video with lots of editing, unlike this video, which is going to be very minimally edited, so I hope you're looking forward to that. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you do enjoy it, like the video if you did, comment what you think, and that's it for today. I'll see you in my next video.